Mr. Riddle.
Present.
Ms. Callahan-Wozniak.
Here.
Mr. McBride. Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Ms. Hannah. Ms. Leguizamo. President Ewing.
We do have a quorum, so seeing as I hadn't heard from any board members, I expect them to show up. They just may be running late. I do know Mr. McBride is downstairs, but this is part 2 of our strategic plan. We are a little bit under the gun as far as timeline wise, so we definitely want to make sure that we get in, have a productive conversation, which will be led by Deputy Cesario and Mr. Bembry, and then we will be done by 8 p.m. So thank you all for coming out, and look forward to a productive workshop.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So I am Deputy Superintendent Eduardo Cesario. I am joined by Dr. Nault.
First thing on the agenda is actually public comment. So there's nobody signed up. Just for the record.
And for the record, the first item on the agenda was public comment, of which no one signed up for. So I'll continue. So again, my name is Eduardo Cesario, Deputy Superintendent, here with our board. And this, as Board President Ewing stated, this is our second board workshop. We're joined by Dr. Nault and Nick Alajak as Chief of Staff, and Mr. Bembry, who will help to facilitate. So we are going to today's objectives. We're going to provide an overview of our proposed strategic planning process. And we had talked about this earlier. We're moving from Destination 2022 to Destination 2028. We're going to share our progress, what we've done so far, and where we're at in the current process, and where we're going to go as we develop Destination 2028. We also are going to collaborate together, and there'll be some activities for board members to review and reflect on the accomplishments of Destination 2022. It'll provide an opportunity to celebrate areas of success and discuss continued areas of growth. We'll also continue and segue that reflection into a vision for what Destination 2028 will look like. So again, the premise of Destination 2028 is really to build off of the work we did in Destination 2022. Part of that was that we built our framework for success, which is really a process of progress monitoring and providing supports to team members regarding their respective goals. We'll also see a shift from really action and activity-oriented to developing practice. So looking at Destination 2022 as really laying the foundation for Destination 2028. You'll note that this destination, as was Destination 2022, Destination 2028 will be pre-K through post-secondary, and with an emphasis and a focus on equity woven throughout. Our next step right now, again, is part of our workshop. Our second workshop is really to facilitate a reflective walkthrough with the Board of Ed and our team members that are present today. And again, underscore and celebrate areas of success, as well as discuss areas of continued growth. I'd like to welcome Board Member Mr. McBride into our meeting today. And thank you, Mr. McBride, for joining us. So we are part of a large part of Destination 2028, and a large part of any strategic planning process really involves our stakeholders. So the stakeholders that we're talking about really are our Board of Education, our departments, divisions, our school leaders, district leadership team, staff and faculty, our parents, our students, and our community organizations and partners. So our goal is to gather input from all of those stakeholders in order to develop our Destination 2028, our strategic plan, but also, again, to celebrate our areas of success, to share in the work that we're doing, and to also look for opportunities for continued growth. And I am going to turn it over to Mr. Nick Alajakis to really give an overview of our process, the initial process with our surveys. So, Nick?
Thank you, Dr. Cesario. What Dr. Cesario mentioned in the previous slide was very important about making sure that we have our stakeholder input on this. And we're going to talk in a few different slides about how we've done that and how we're going to continue to do it. The first, sort of the initial, most obvious way was through surveys. And we're going to get into our survey results shortly. Lee, if we can just go back real quick. So just so you know, when we get into our survey results, and that's later in the presentation, we're going to be talking about the results from the respondents. And you'll see here we had a fair amount of feedback from parents and staff, students, community members. And one thing that we did ask was about their years of experience with the district. So again, you see that kind of runs the gamut. And we're going to get into some of the things that they told us once we, in the next few slides. But before we do that, we want to talk a little bit about, in the next slide, about some of the features of Destination 2028, what we're looking to do. One thing is to ensure that this document, we've talked about it being a live document, is to make sure that it's regularly monitored and adjusted. We know things come up. In our last strategic plan, I don't think as we were building that out in 2017, anyone could have predicted a global pandemic. And so we want to make sure that we're able to adjust it. We want to make sure it's outward facing, that it's going to include some dashboards where we're able to share our progress regarding goals and initiatives. And that's something we've talked to the board quite a bit about over the last year or two, are some of those dashboards where that we want to be monitoring. We also want to engage the whole community as we go through this process. In the process of continuous improvement for multiple school years, as we look at BOI, MOI, EOI, and provide reports that celebrate the areas of growth and share areas of needed improvement. So that's something that we already do, and we want to continue to do that, to bring forward where we're at. Here's where we want to go in the future. So a major part of this, and this is kind of step one, right? Bringing the board together for a second time. This is one of our first things, but it's our stakeholder engagement plan, because we want to ensure that this plan is reflective of our stakeholders and of our community. It's not a plan that the superintendent put together, or Dr. Cesario, or even the 7 board members. We want to make sure everybody kind of has that input to ensure that the future of Waukegan Public Schools mirrors what our community and our stakeholders want to see. And so we have a timeline, and on the next slide it talks about that. It's been adjusted slightly, as board members know, just kind of getting everyone together, getting these meetings to sort of push things back a little bit. But we want to do our stakeholder engagement in the fall. And that's something we're going to discuss again in some later slides, what that stakeholder engagement looks like. As we go into the winter months, we want to begin to amend and adjust the plan. By December or January, we hope to have an initial draft to present to the Board of Education. Again, this is fluid, it could change. And then by the first of the year in 2023, we hope to begin with the implementation of that. So some of the feedback that we're going to be doing, if you go on to the next slide, you'll see there's a survey which we've worked on. We're going to be doing focus groups, town hall type events, community forums. We want to be doing some events also on social media that we've done, sort of like those Facebook Live events and things of that nature. And that concludes that part. We're going to turn it over now to we do have some activities for the board to go through today. And I believe Mr. Bembry, along with Dr. Cesario, are going to be walking us through those.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to all of the board members that are here and to the district leadership for their work here. As someone who has facilitated numerous strategic planning sessions, I want to commend you for the work that you're doing in updating it, reviewing it, getting the stakeholder engagement, and really taking this serious, so that it's not just a document that's on a shelf someplace, but it is a real live document that adds value to the process of student education. So just want to commend you for this great work. In our last session, we spent a fair amount of time getting some of your thoughts vis-a-vis what the juxtaposition is of Destination 2028 and 2022. And so in your packet, you should have this particular document. You recall that we spent a fair amount of time having you speak to Destination 2028, what the vision should look like for parents, for students, for staff, and also for the community. You guys did an incredible amount of work, and so I don't want to assume that this has been, top of mind over the last couple of months. And so what I'd like to do is to give you a few minutes to just review these 3 pages, actually. And we're going to give you about 5 minutes. Individually, just take a look at them. If you have some notes that you want to write on them, and then we'll come back in just a few minutes and move forward with the rest of the board activities. All right? Just take about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes to review that. Yes, ma'am. It's front and back on one page. You don't? Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Can I just remind them real quick, this was the activity, if you guys remember, that we did with the sticky notes?
Yes.
Where we had the posters and you had to kind of place the colored sticky note on the different groups, stakeholder group, to determine what we wanted them, the vision for that stakeholder group.
And the top row are the major initiatives that we're working on right now. So those fall under our 5 pillars with respect to each division. So ASAP and operations and finance.
As you're reviewing that document, if there's any high-level thoughts that come to you as you're doing this review and refreshing yourself, just make a note of that, and we'll ask for some of that feedback in just a couple of moments here. high-level comments on what you saw. Does it still make sense? Does it still resonate? Is there something that is perhaps missing from those reflections at that time? I'm sorry. We'll take another 30 seconds or so and look for your reflections on that activity. Does it make sense? Is it still relevant? Are there some things that might be glaringly missing from that document? Okay, let's go ahead and come back together then. Thank you for taking some time to really look into and to ponder the work that we did a couple of months ago. As you reviewed those, was there anything that stood out to you, perhaps that resonated again and perhaps in an even more impactful way over the last couple of months? Anything that might be glaringly missing in the work that we did?
Yeah, Dr. Bramby, on the high school transformation, I wasn't sure if we talked about this. I know it's been talked about a lot, is career pathways for our high school students so that they become engaged and see themselves, in where they might be as they leave high school. We've seen this at other high schools where they're putting vocational types of programs. I know we use the CLC for that, not CLC,
Oh, yeah.
but the
Thanks.
the other. Oh yeah. Yeah, for the high school transformation. I thought we had talked about it a little bit at our planning session, but certainly we've heard from the community and talked about it many times about having career pathways for our high school students so they can become more engaged in learning and see it as a lifelong process and get excited about where they might be when they leave high school. So whether that is for college or whether it's for some career in, whether it be the healthcare industry or some sort of programming in technology and engineering, something like that, as other schools are doing, as we see labs being developed in other schools, vocational types of learning for kids to engage them. And I don't actually see that here under high school transformation.
Good. You want to just note that?
Yep, we'll just note it, and I just want to just reiterate too that again, these were responses from the board while doing this, so it's not an exhaustive list either. But it's a good thing to add those things on there. So this is a good opportunity to do that. Like Mr. Riddle was saying, he didn't see it there in reflection. It's something that should be prioritized in Destination 2028 because this is where we see ourselves moving forward under these areas, all right, that fall under our pillars.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Yeah, I think the language isn't here, but some of the phrases that touch on it relate to safety, but student and staff wellness, like social emotional care. There's like a lot of safety, feeling safe, wellness, but not specifically mental health or social emotional learning.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Great, thanks. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
On the bottom. Here, you want to swap it?
Lucy must be watching online or something because she's texting me. We're missing alternative school for middle school redesign. Alternative, yeah. That's what she says.
Can she expand on that? Yeah, sorry. The only reason I'm saying that is because alternative school can have different meanings. So I just want to understand the context so we're capturing it appropriately.
All right.
Okay.
Or maybe like if they're not graduating on time within the 3 years, like what? Maybe that's kind of what she's saying.
Yeah, I don't want to make an assumption. So it could be, but it could also mean a number of other things. So if she responds, we noted it up there. We'll come back to her with that. But just a alternative could mean a number of different things. I just don't want to make an assumption about what her intent was.
All right, great, thanks. Anything else? Anything that you're looking at that maybe just resonates strongly, like this is definitely an exclamation point here where we really want to highlight that? President Ewing, it looks like you're pondering saying something. Am I wrong? Okay. Excellent. All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay, just to expand on or continue with that, with the curriculum writing section there where it talks about parents knowing and understanding the learning expectations for their child. They have accessibility to curriculum goals. Just so that I know we're working hard to get our parents involved in education. Without the parents' support and their ability, some of our parents aren't sure how school works in America or in District 60. And they struggle with that. And the more we can get parents involved, the more we have the kids engaged, and working at home with their parents helps tremendously. So I know we're working hard on that, but I just think that is an extremely important area to continue to focus on.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
I was going to say the same thing that Rick said about parent involvement in the schools. And Lucy wrote in like AOEC concept, but for middle school.
Okay.
That's her alternative.
Okay.
school.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. Anything else? Mr. McBride, anything that nothing? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So thanks for adding that to it. It's always good to just kind of refresh ourselves as we look at the work that was done, and now as we begin to kind of really press the pedal forward, really just want to encapsulate your thoughts. Yes, ma'am.
I want to add in reading. Reading is fundamental. If you don't have your reading skills, you lose at science, math, everything else. You just it holds you back, and you really do need an emphasis on being on track with reading in the early school years.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. All right, so you guys are just going to tag team me, right?
We're going to tag team back and forth because I just want to emphasize, we know how important that is. We saw a demonstration of that at Oakdale School. We engage partners in the community to work and tutor, and the board brought up at that meeting how important it was to continue that for the kids who have missed out. We don't want to drop those kids. They're going to continue to struggle through school if we don't have programs like that for them. And when you have a person individually working with you, our library does that, helping adults being tutored to read. We need to develop that in our schools too, so that those kids aren't forever lost through the school system or drop out because they can't read. So to hang in there with them and to help them is just critical. And so, we're going to be tagging back and forth here, I think, because we're on the same page. But I think
Your time expired again. So,
That's what we want.
yeah, we appreciate your engagement here tonight. So I think we've captured, we've captured the career pathways, social emotional wellness, alternative school, similar to the AOEC, curriculum writing, parental support and engagement, and emphasis on reading, kind of to the second power here, right? Now, Dr. Cesario, I went over that just so that you could know what I wrote, because my handwriting is probably as good as yours, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So did you want to add anything else before we go to our next section?
I just want to just reiterate that, again, this is not an exhaustive list, and that a lot of what we're talking about fall under those pillars, right?
Yes.
So one of the things about reading and the family engagement piece, getting parents involved, really falls under institutional access, but then the reading piece also falls under student achievement too. So we're going to see that some of these, they don't fall neatly into one category, right? And I know that it was mentioned before, but this is not everything, and that there's more. It is more, but again, these are the priorities that we've been focusing on, and that they fall under these broad pillars, right? And we're gonna actually move into showcasing and you all have copies of Destination 2022 also, so that you can refer back to. But then we're gonna segue into another activity where we can talk about what we set out to do in Destination 2022, and then hopefully celebrate a lot of that, because there was a lot of great work done across both divisions. And then also talk about areas for continued growth, much like we did here in this exercise about talking about what our vision is for 2028.
Excellent, excellent. Has everyone had an opportunity to review pages 18 through 28
you have a copy?
in this book? All right, so what I would like to then ask you to do is to just take a few moments and just kind of review that, just high-level review. Doesn't have to be exhaustive, but a high-level review of pages 18 through 28 as we look at, as Dr. Cesario just said, those goals and what was written for Destination 2022. As you go through them, if you see any areas where, in your opinion, the district has done well and succeeded, would you just kind of place a check mark by those? If you see some areas that you thought, wow, this is definitely an area that we need to pay more attention to, more robust attention as we move toward 28, then make a note there. After we give you a moment to just kind of review that, we're going to ask you to really do have some conversation about those areas at your tables, and then we'll give you about maybe 20 to 30 minutes to do that, but then we'll look to get some feedback from you. Yes, sir.
Sorry. So did we want to break them up into these groups now or later?
Yeah, we can do that now.
Yeah. Okay.
So right after you do a review, we're going to break you up. Do we have enough people to
We could. I
all
think
these people?
maybe we just sit we
the
just keep
tables.
them at these tables, and then I don't think we have enough people. 1, 4, 4. We're one short, but
So we're just saying one group is ASAP?
yeah, we'll just do
and one
that.
group is- okay.
Yeah, and then we can identify. So,
Great. Take a couple of minutes and review those pages, and then at your tables, Dr. Cesario will alert us as to which table is operations and which table is academics.
So then it'll be after, right? Yeah. Okay. 4 more minutes, or should we break them up now?
18 to 20.
Okay.
Take about 3 or 4 more moments or minutes.
Can we go back to the deck? I'm just gonna ask a couple people to move over, so we'll have operations here and then academics there, and then just a couple people have to switch seats, but that's fine. And then we'll just kind of leave it like, I think it's good. And then we'll just try to ask them to hit on each one of the pillars within their group in their respective division. Is that what it does to your hair? Okay, so we're gonna have a little bit more time to reflect, but we're gonna do it in groups. So like Mr. Bembry said, we're gonna switch up into 2 different groups. We're going to have the operations finance group at this table, and so superintendent, if you could walk over here and be a part of this group. This is operations, and then ASAP, Mr. Riddle, if you could come here. With Jason, if you could also go over, and then we're good. So this will be the ASAP group, this will be the operations group, and you're gonna continue this, you're coming over here. Well, if you wanna switch with one of the operations people, it's, all right.
I'm here, good.
All right, so you're good, stay where you're at.
No, I'm sure we'll be able to chime in.
Okay, so now that we've settled what the groups are, we're going to continue this, but what we want you to do is also now take those areas of celebration and those areas of growth, those reflections that you had, really have you can discuss those amongst yourselves, and then also try to go across what those pillars are. Try to identify an area of growth and an area of celebration within each of those pillars, all right? Questions?
So we're going to start off with 20 minutes for you, and
Do you
if
have a
we
question?
need to adjust that, we'll adjust that.
An area of celebration and an area of growth. Because a pro and a con are very different. A pro means yes, I'm for, con means I'm against. And this is not against. You're not against anything. We're talking about areas of celebration and areas of growth. Because it's developmental, right? And so our mindset has to be around, we're focusing on development. So what we're working towards, right? Not that something's good or bad or pro or con, for or against, but rather this is what we're doing, this is how well we're doing at it at this particular juncture in time, right? And then these are areas that we need to continue to grow on. And that doesn't mean that that area of growth doesn't mean that we can't celebrate it for where we've met our milestone, right? So if you look, it's FY 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So if we've made significant gains from 18 to 19, 19 to 20, those should be celebrated. But it can also be an area of growth because we're not exactly where we wanted to be, right? And we also, I think this is a really great opportunity to discuss this, is we had a really big event occur here, right? We had a really big event occur and where a lot of things stopped. So there were initiatives that didn't stop under capital improvement. That actually we kept doing a lot of work under capital improvement, right? And on the academic side, we continued with the curriculum writing. It was a lot slower than we wanted to, but that was something that we could do. Another example of an area where we weren't able to grow as quickly as we wanted to was middle school redesign. Because of the pandemic and the amount of work that was dependent on the principals and where we were just starting, the momentum was lost and we had to prioritize and we kept focusing on curriculum writing. So, all right, yes? Do you want to use the mic, Superintendent?
Sure.
There you go.
I also think just reading through the academic and the capital pages, I think the pandemic has helped us see that we could have done things maybe differently. I want to say more innovative, broader, in the sense when we had to go remote. So I think some of our thinking was at, I want to say maybe a B tier. I'm just going to use that when we could have taken it to A.
So again, opportunities, right? These are opportunities. Remember, we did a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I think the superintendent just gave an excellent example of an opportunity that came out of an area of what many would consider a threat, right? So that was awesome. Yes.
So we're going to give you about 20 minutes to get started here.
We want to hand out the templates too, right?
We're going to give you a blank tink.
Oh, thanks. Ms. Leguizamo has texted, and Ms. Leguizamo, we had you in the operations group. So yes, continue to text Ms. Charlotte, Ms. Kellyanne Wozniak.
This is so we can jot notes if we want on that. Thank you. So, go ahead, Mr. Rowe, you were saying.
What are we doing? Music?
Here's a blank template for you to use.
We haven't, we did, pre-pandemic, we were showing some significant growth in math.
I'm not sure how that happened, what happened after the pandemic, or during the pandemic on that, but we were moving really in the right direction.
Yep. Are you in the second, you're on this part right here, right? So I come on that, yeah.
second grade group.
Reading Power came to Oakdale last year. We had a meeting and discussed the importance of having our students meet with volunteers one-to-one and practice their phonics and get excited about reading. And Lisa was very gracious to explain the program. And of course, I took her up on that, and we have been happy ever since. Hi, I'm Mrs. Quinones Nelson, the principal here at Oakdale Elementary.
Hi, I'm Lisa Bolzoni. I'm the CEO of Reading Power. We select students who are below the 25th percentile in literacy according to district as well as our own assessments. And we provide all of our programming to the schools we serve for free.
So I am Julie Collishaw. I'm the site coordinator for Reading Power at Oakdale. The students come to us 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, but they do the same things each day that they come with the different tutors. We come in and they're about 35 minutes long, the session, and they start with fast words. Super important. We start with the first 100, and then many of our students move on to the second 100, but they're assigned a fast word every night for homework, and we review it and practice it when they first come in. And we keep track of the ones they're learning, and we celebrate once they get to the first 100, when they get to the second 100. The fast words are crucial to help them move forward in their reading.
We have students that are in the red, in the yellow, in the green, a little in the blue. Our red is kind of heavy, so having Reading Power take a group of students for 35 minutes allows the teacher in the classroom to differentiate for those low and high students.
Jalen, what did you read today?
I read Danny and Chompy.
What was it about?
It's about Danny in the Worm and Chompy. I'm going to tell you about Chompy. It's about Chompy wants to eat and he's hungry, so he gets tomatoes over my head. When you was a puppy, you were so different.
What do you like about coming in and doing this?
I like reading and doing fun games.
The easier students are the ones that really just need a little bit of a boost, someone to sit with them and help them decode words, have conversations about the books that they're reading. And obviously the children that are more verbal are also easier to work with. I think some of the children that are more of a challenge are the kids, first of all, that are lagging significantly behind their peers. Oftentimes I've found in the children that I've tutored, they already feel, even at the first and second grade level, that they can't do it, they can't read. And so getting them over that hump and helping them know that they are actually learners, and even if they can't read a book now, that with practice and with help, they are going to be able to accomplish that, and to give them that sense of growth mindset and learning and the can-do attitude.
Level 0 in the hall, my friend.
Our safety patrol, it's a good opportunity for our older students to take on a leadership role and to help to establish our PBIS expectations of being respectful and being responsible and being safe.
So the social worker and I were talking because we loved the safety patrol program in our school, but we noticed that sometimes the students that were on safety patrol kind of assumed more of an authoritative position and sometimes would meaning well, but they would talk down to some of their students or kind of act like they were younger and kind of take charge of them. And we really wanted those students to learn how to interact with students that are different from them and learn about students with different abilities.
We really are using our more mature students, our fifth graders, to help out with the younger kids, the kindergartners, the first graders, the second graders. And their main job in the cafeteria can be as simple as helping them open up ketchup and walking in a line quietly out to recess. Once they get outside, then we utilize them to make sure the kids are playing fairly, playing safely on the swings and taking turns.
I like to, when we go to a playground, we go on the swings, we climb stuff, or we run around.
It gives our younger kids someone to look up to. They can help them to reinforce some of those expectations. But not only that, it's an older friend, a mentor that they can look up to, and that they can hopefully model their being a student when they get older.
The kindergartners, they attach themselves to certain 5th grade students. Then we have others that 2nd graders that they're playing tag with. They sort of think of them as friends, even though I make sure that my students know that they're not necessarily friends. They're there to make sure that they're safe and responsible and respectful.
I think for our low incidence kids, it's a chance to be included with the general education population. I've seen a lot of growth in their social skills just from having those peer models with them. And then for the general education students, I think it's a really important life skill to learn that there are people with all different abilities, and that just because they might be different doesn't mean that they're less than. So the buddy program meets once a week, so every Wednesday they get to eat lunch and have recess with their buddies, and then every quarter we kind of have a meeting with them and debrief and see if they have any questions, if they need to change buddies, or if they need any help with anything. The safety patrol is every day of the week, and they'll wear those orange vests that you see, and that's kind of a distinction for them so that students on the playground know that if they can't find a teacher or if they need help, that they can look to a safety patrol. On buddy days, they don't wear a vest or anything to distinguish themselves because their role is just to be there to play with their buddy and just to be a friend. It's, no one has more power than the other.
And I joined Buddy because some of the buddies didn't have anybody to play with, and I wanted to try to be friends with them.
And just like Safety Patrol, they had to write a letter about why they wanted to be in the buddy program, and also if there was a certain buddy that they wanted to have. Some of them, I think, are familiar with the students. They see them in the halls. Some of the students push into their classroom, so we wanted them to have the opportunity to choose their buddy as well.
So those kids work all year. They donate their recess to help us, and we want to reward them for that.
So today we're celebrating our buddies by having an ice cream social. Our 5th grade buddies will be having ice cream as kind of a year-end celebration with our students in our low incidence classroom that they are buddies and role models for. We took our safety patrol students as a reward. We took them to the Milwaukee Brewers game yesterday, which was May 18th.
The kids almost listen more to the 5th graders than they do to adults, just because of the relationship of seeing them every day and going on the swings, and they'll actually listen to them, which is amazing to see. And then those kids, you can see the smiles on their face when it's like, oh, Mr. D, she listens to me and not you. It's like, that's great, that's great. That's why I hired you.
Nice work.
and they're so
I can see the
condescending
sweat
and-
coming off of your brows, so I'm sure you all have done incredible work here. So let's go to each one of the groups to kind of hit maybe a couple of high points in terms of areas where we've done well. Maybe we've done exceptionally well. Maybe we've done well in light of, right, the unforeseen COVID effect. But a place where you'd like to just articulate a place of growth and celebration. Next piece then would be, what are some areas where either we haven't achieved or we've partially achieved, or whatever the reason is. It's not a pejorative, right, wrong, good, bad. It's just where we are and where we need to really put some focus over the next few years toward Destination 2028. Let's start with the academic group first. Sure. Go ahead.
Go for it, yeah. Go for it.
Can we go one by one? Because we did all the 5 pillars.
Yeah.
Okay, just very
Excellent.
briefly.
You guys follow the instructions?
So, so for goal number 1, we had a lot of celebrations. We talked about how, this was prior to the pandemic, but we had seen really good growth in our math scores, our math attainment, and area of improvement obviously is to continue that and level that with the reading that we want to see our students achieve. And a huge celebration was the expansion of our course offerings. I'll talk slower too. So our course offerings at the elementary level have expanded. We have a magnet school, and we've even exceeded and gone ahead and applied for IB schools as well. And then the question I posed that I would like to see is whether for our AP and honors classes at the high school, whether we've increased the enrollment for those students to keep it at every level.
What are you suggesting by that statement? Is that a place of growth? Or
A growth. Mm-hmm.
That's a place of growth?
Yeah.
All right. Got it.
And that's for goal number 1.
Okay.
For goal number 2, a celebration was our the communication plan and our social media presence online has really helped us gain more engagement with what we're doing as a district. And we've been able to survey more stakeholders because of that. The area of growth there is just to develop more relationships with community organizations and to strengthen parent engagement at the schools at the site level.
Okay.
For district goal 3, organizational effectiveness, I think for that one, our celebration was just looking at obviously our fiscal achievements, the fact that we've been fiscally responsible, and then the area of growth is looking at what programs are most effective and being able to evaluate them and sort of change them up, but also considering that some of our teachers and staff feel like we move in and out of programs so often, so being mindful of that as well as an area of growth. And for district goal 4 and 5, we talked about how a huge celebration is that SEL curriculum is more embedded in our day-to-day work. The district embraces that, wants to embrace it more, and we're trying to collaborate with more partnerships and people who can also help us achieve that. But an area of growth is, again, getting more parents involved. We still see them less engaged, even in our surveys, even though we are making strides in getting more engagement. And that they feel like they know and understand the expectations that students have toward their curriculum and graduation requirements. That was one celebration, but also the area of growth. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, let's give that group a hand. Good job. Good job. Excellent. All right, let's go to operations.
Okay, we were a little bit all over the place in our conversation. So one of the celebrations was definitely the 10-year capital improvement plan. We stated since we have that plan, regardless of we went through the pandemic or etc., the plan was constant and consistent. It lets us know what we're doing next in the community. Let them know what we're doing next, but it also ties our finances to it as a commitment. The second area of celebration would be goal 1. And give me 1 second. Ensure cleaning and maintenance is maintained on a scheduled basis. And what we said is, as a result of the pandemic, it's always been a top priority for us to provide a clean, safe environment for our staff and students to work and learn in. However, that process did not stop as a result of the pandemic. We did have to pivot on how we did the work.
So the pandemic really brought some synergy to that work there. It made it better and perhaps institutionalized more in the culture?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And so areas of growth under goal 5 is safety. And ensuring that our staff and students feel safe. And just the trajectory of when we wrote this plan and adopted it and what has happened in our country since then, the shooting of Uvalde, etc., right? Highland Park. And so feel that that's an opportunity for some growth. And then when we look at how the operations goals are laid out, it seems that we're mixing apple with oranges, and we would really think that an opportunity for growth would be to call out different divisions and the work streams that they have. So operations, safety, human resources, finance, so that though they may be in the operations component or fall under that division, that they're very concrete with their work streams attached to them, so that our stakeholders are able to access that information, look at what our targets are, and hold us accountable for what we say we're going to do in the work.
Some of Lucy's comments were provide regular customer service training goals. Safety is always a concern and constantly evolving. Do we have safety at each school building? Has every safety officer been trained in all of these areas noted? These areas have not been reported back to the school board members. An area for growth is the foot traffic, student gathering pattern analysis, street traffic, safety patterns analysis, and work with the city of Waukegan to paint safety lines around school zones as a priority.
Okay. So it almost sounds as though she's kind of advocating for just a real comprehensive look at the whole safety picture.
Well, we needed growth there, definitely. We decided that was one of our areas that needed improvement.
Is there a work
And-
stream along that line? Along safety?
There is.
So it sounds like she's proffering this notion of a real comprehensive look at safety in all areas, right? And then we talked about it here in terms of feeling safe, and she says at all schools. And I'm just wondering, does safety have its own work stream in terms of what safety looks like at multiple levels, intervals, et cetera?
I think you're on.
Okay, so if you look at the strategic plan,
Hello.
got it. So if you look at our strategic plan, I would say no. It seems to be embedded just in the operational component of what we call operations. I believe that what we were suggesting as an opportunity for growth is like we have a capital improvement plan. We have a phase plan that is safety, and a safety plan would be another component where we could see all that along with HR and other bucket areas under that division.
So I think that's one of the things is safety as a delineated item, in addition to family and community engagement, something that would go across both divisions, and it would encompass SEL, but also some of the capital improvements that would be needed that board member like Wazamo mentioned regarding, just striping, different access points where students, it's delineated, it's definitely a student area, right? So that's an excellent point, and that's a great suggestion for moving forward with Destination 2028.
Okay, great. Have we missed anything, or has anything else come to mind in your deliberations, in operations, or in academics? Yes, sir.
I know I wasn't in academics, but the only thing for me, going back to, I've talked about it before, but the chart on page 22, it just, when you look at it, and not COVID aside, but even taking into account COVID and where we want to be or plan to be in comparison to where we actually ended. So by 2021, 2022, 90% of students, freshmen on track. Graduation rate, here it says 90, but then on page 16, it says 100%, right? So even just from a structural, it's just making sure that we're in line. But I think that's the area of growth, is when we have or we make these academic projections that we really think about, do we want them to be aspirational, and I understand the argument for it, or if we're trying to be transparent, do we actually want to show how much we scientifically believe that we can grow these results from any year-to-year basis? Is because when we say 90% by year 5 and we don't hit 90% by year 5, it can be discouraging to the team, and people don't realize how much progress has actually been made.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think, when I opened, one of the things I spoke about was the fact that the difference between Destination 2022 and Destination 2028 is that we're going to adjust that. It's not going to be static. So aspirational, 5 years out, obviously we want everyone, 100% of our students to be achieving at an optimum level, but we also have to look at where we're currently at, and that's respective of every area that we're in. And so part of the work what we did with the Framework for Success is identifying what our baseline is. This is where we are at with this respective stream of work, and this is where we need to be, and then what is the growth that we want to see. And again, updating this periodically so that not only internally can we see it, but so that it's outward facing, and that our community and our stakeholders can see periodically, whether it's the semester or the year, this is how we're doing with this particular goal. And here are the adjustments that we need to make based on areas of celebration or areas of growth. So I think that's a excellent observation, is like, how are we coming up with these numbers? And how are we determining where we want to go? And it should be based on your rate of growth, respective of those particular areas, right? And a standard, right? So those are all things that are considering, and I think that's why that framework for success was an excellent way to kind of really segue into the development of Destination 2028. Yes, Board or Superintendent.
So I think under goal 1, under academics, if I could just spend some time, I think the pandemic has taught us that schooling does not need to look as we traditionally have viewed it, right? So 8 to 3, 9 months in a chair. And so we have a goal there to provide alternative paths to graduation. And I think that as a result of the pandemic, there's a real big opportunity for us to build on that, where we can create a virtual school or a half-day school, or have students take even more credits that they want to graduate within 2 to 3 years. And just coming out of the pandemic, we've seen kids thrive on through technology, and we've also seen them really struggle through it, right? But giving each individual student an opportunity to pick a pathway that may not be the traditional routes, and may not even be the most popular route, but fits them and their family for their needs. And I think that that's a big opportunity that we can grow in Waukegan Public Schools to support the community that we serve.
Thank you.
Well, that's a really powerful point there. And do you have any data at this point, Superintendent and staff, that supports that assertion there?
Some of the survey work that we've been doing around our post-secondary and aligned to our high school transformation plan around some of the opportunities for our CTE programming. We're at the beginning phases of that. That's embedded within our plan to really gauge the interest, and we really wanted to go down to the middle school level so that we're capturing this as we move up. But I think that it's not only providing opportunities, but it's also looking at existing partners within the community and the greater community. We have some excellent partners here, and organizations that are willing to partner. Rosalind Franklin, the CLC. I mean, there are numerous opportunities. It's just about building those out and being strategic, again, based on the data that we're being provided. So we can have an idea of what we think we want, but we need to really hear it from our students and from our parents, and from our teachers, frankly. What are you interested in teaching? What are we interested in learning about? What are some career pathways that we would like to have present in our schools?
Excellent, thanks. Anyone else want to add anything else to what we've done so far? If not, we'll go ahead and go to our next assignment. Go ahead, Dr. Cesario, if you want to introduce that piece there, and I'll start passing it out.
Sure. So I put there's two piles, so we can just drop it on each table. So there's one there and here. So what you're going to have in front of you is the exercise that you went through. Each division also went through during a DLT meeting. And this is actually something that we do periodically, even though the plan Destination 2022 wasn't, by its very structure, adjustable. We were reviewing it. It was one of the first exercises that I did when I came in as the deputy superintendent, was to look at the plan and to identify where we were with regard to our goals. So what you should have is an ASAP one and an operations one. Each person should have each. And this is the most recent reflection from our each division team. And so our district leadership team came together and we did a review, and we actually sat in groups just like this. ASAP sat with their department leads, operations sat with their department leads, and we reflected on Destination 2022. We talked about what were our areas of celebration and what are our areas of continued growth. And so what you have here is a documentation of that. So they looked back at Destination 22, what were the things we said we were going to do, and what did we actually do? Where are we? And so you're going to see that there. And it's a pretty exhaustive list. Again, not every single piece of work or stream of work has been captured in these forms, but you're going to see there are a lot of celebrations, and there's also areas for growth. Because that's what we wanted to focus on. We wanted to focus on what are our areas that we did indeed make accomplishments, and then where are areas that we need to continue to grow. So we'll give you a few minutes to reflect on that before I have Nick come up and talk about what our next steps are going to look like, and how we've adjusted, or how we are going to adjust the timeline a little bit so that we can make sure that we're getting enough stakeholder input to really have a robust Destination 2028.
Any similarities, differences, any top-level thoughts about anything you've observed in this document?
A lot of times as a board or a community, is if we don't hear about it, right, we don't necessarily think that people are looking at it or paying attention to it. So seeing some of the areas of growth that the staff have identified, right, what align with what I would believe the board and the community would assume or believe are areas of growth as well.
President Ewing, are you suggesting anything by that statement in terms of more communication outreach? Is that a growth area that you're suggesting, perhaps?
It's a communication style. Is if it's on fire, say it's on fire. And a lot of times, we have a joke at work, right? Everything is fine. And I think sometimes when we are saying or we understand all of it, we got to communicate succinctly to the community what is going on in those growth areas. It's because they see them and they know that they exist. And if we don't acknowledge them in clear terms that they understand, so even saying an area of growth, right, in corporate speak, I understand what that means, but to other people, that means they think it's going okay, versus this is a concern, right, and this is what we're doing to address your concern. And I think just going forward, I don't want to create any more work for Deputy Cesario, but how do you take something that's thick like this, and it really seems to read like a plan for educators, and make it accessible to the average community members, because or parent who doesn't have time to read through all of this. I want to know what you're doing and sleep clearly, but I know Ms. Wozniak's pet peeve is ILTs and DLTs and acronyms that I have no idea what they mean, right?
No, I think that's an excellent point about, like, when I say area of growth, it's how you convey it to different groups, right? So because if I say it's an area of concern to one group, they're going to think that they failed, right? But if I'm speaking to parents, then they know that I know that their concern is my concern. Yep. So that's an excellent point. And I think that it's what we put out has to be, our dashboards have to be very clear. This is what we're focusing on, and here are the high level pieces. Not everybody needs to know every specific detail of everything that we're doing. They need to know the big chunks, right? And internally, we need to know what are the KPI, the key performance indicators that are directly tied to that, right? But our parents don't need to hear about KPIs, right? Like, to your point. And some of them might, but there's an access for that there.
And I think it's to that point is, and again, I do want to know, and I know the board, and sometimes people question, but if that freshman on track is moving, right, I'm concerned with how you're doing it if there's a concern, but all I want to see is that it was here and that it's going there. So that outward facing dashboard will be good, but you outside of to the board or anybody else, right? Admin, I'm not talking about Deputy Cesario. Is anybody else coming and mentioning, like you said, we're doing these 80 things in order to move that freshman on track, right? They just care that the freshman on track is moving.
That's right.
The board may need to know what levers you're pulling. The superintendent may need to know what levers you're pulling.
Right.
And if we see it going backwards, we got to know what's being done to reverse it. But a lot of times that's what it is we see the safety concern. We see how the pandemic has set us back academically. We now have that baseline. I don't want to keep hearing about the baseline as much as this is where we are and this is what we're doing, the steps, but really I just want to see the numbers, because I don't necessarily understand everything that you're doing or why you're choosing to pull that lever versus another one.
Right. So you don't need to know that we're adopting this curriculum or that curriculum. You just need to know that the students are learning math and that they were here on IAR and now they're here. Yeah. But internally, some of what you see in here is useful internally for the folks that we're working on. And that, again, that's part of the reason why we moved to that framework for success, is that it's got to be, we have to give feedback to the people that we're working with internally so that they can understand that this big metric up here has 20 steps in between, and that it's important that you're hitting on all these levers because it's going to help you be successful. And then externally, all we need to show is what is that big piece of data that people want to see, whether it's attendance, whether it's freshmen on track, where were we at the beginning of the year, and where are we at the middle of the year, where are we at the end of the year, where did we say we were going to be? Yeah, excellent feedback.
Thank you. Superintendent?
I think a lot of the work is done for us already, and I don't know how much we're building off of it. So our state has an Illinois school report card in which we have benchmarks that are set and that we compete with surrounding districts ourselves. And it seems to me that our strategic plan, when we're looking at our benchmarks, and I'm looking at the one that was given us with HR, it really focuses on recruitment, but there's just so much more that goes in there. Teacher retention, evaluation, I mean, just a lot more. And so how are we using those benchmarks that we're graded on as a district to set the mark of what we need to achieve throughout the year and backward map from that? And so I think as we move forward, it shouldn't be like, and I'll go back to what Brandon said, and I know why we did it because I was here when we did it. We utilized NWA, which is not on the Illinois school report card. So now we use IAR. Did I give the right acronym?
Yes.
I always mix
good.
it up.
Yeah.
I always say IRA. IAR. And so that should be the target in SAT versus the NWA. And the NWA may be just one of those things that we monitor. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, is going back to the freshman on track. I think that's an excellent mark to use, is because we know where we're at and we know where we need to be in order to talk about, college and career. And so that's something that's already, we have the research and we have the data behind it. So those are already there. You're absolutely right. And using those rather than coming up with numbers arbitrarily and stretch, right? It's that, I think there's nothing wrong with stretch goals, but it's dependent on what it is that you're doing and with whom you're using that strategy. And with this, we're basing this on SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely, and again, we added the I and the E for inclusion and equitable. Right? So based on that, we're looking at where we're starting compared to a fixed number, a standard, and that's where we want to get. And so for a lot of this, we want to make sure that we're using those benchmarks that are available that are telling us, here's where you are meeting a minimum level of success, or you're exceeding it.
Sorry, my last comment is because I do think that's important to focus, like you said, where we are, and also we know what the state averages are. And so to say, hey, this is where we know the rest of the state is doing, we get in this room all of the things or the challenges that we're up against. But I think that'll make it easier, because it also, if we're looking at, to the superintendent's point, NWA data, and we're celebrating the NWA data, but then a community member is going on to that Illinois school report card, they may, draw their own conclusions as to what success looks like for us. So I think definitely a good start, and I appreciate the commentary around it.
Excellent.
So tomorrow we are going to be presenting BOY data, which includes NWA data. A new slide that we've added now for this next presentation will include a IAR projection score based on your NWA score. So we can make that correlation between, if students are scoring here on NWA, we could project that this would be their IAR score in the spring. So that's a new piece that actually Illinois ISB has put out as well to help schools make that, help districts make that connection between those assessments. So I think that'll be helpful as well. So we're not just comparing apples to oranges. It's NWA. How does that possibly correlate to what the student will get on IAR in the spring? We can kind of start to make some connections there. So.
This will be my last comment. I also think that our schools are rated commendable, exemplary, etc., and some of them don't meet them because of one of the 5 subgroups, right? And so as we benchmark, as we would with retention or etc., that we're also looking at those school ratings, because of course we want all of our schools to be commendable and move to exemplary, but we also need to know what area, if it's all 5 or if it's 2 or if it's 1, what area, whether it's diverse learners, is it African American males, what is it that is holding them back from the designation of commendable, or the area that they need support in. So I think that's another way to look at that data. And when we start talking about the data that way, it will frame the conversation in a different direction, and it would allow us to supply the supports there.
Excellent. There are a couple of board members here. Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to hook back on what the board president said. I'm wondering if it's what we're doing is important work, the strategic plan, but I wonder if we could condense it for the public when we distribute copies that would simplify what we're trying to accomplish in the next 5 years, so that when you go it's a plan to get someplace. Just as you'd get on maps, and you can print out all the directions, and it's a huge amount, and you kind of lose track of where the heck you're going. And when you look on maps, it bing, bing, bing goes through, shows, kind of routes the map to you, and it'll simplify. It'll tell you how long it's going to take to get there, and you know that you're going to stop in a few places, for gas and stuff like that. I just wonder if there's a possibility of simplifying it so that the general public can understand that we have a plan. We all know that a plan is important. If you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going, nor do you know how you're going to get there. So I think a strategic plan is fine, but I just think this beautiful plan that we created, very few people looked at it, probably, and understood what it meant, except for our teachers and our staff. So why distribute it to everybody? Give them a simplified version that would show what our goals are, that we have a plan, and also maybe simplify in the beginning what we accomplished in the last plan is what we did here. Some of the highlights, some of the celebrations, so they know that we had a plan and we accomplished some things. It's just a thought. I just want to build on what the board president said.
I think that's a very good thought. I think that as we grow as a district and we learn through our path, that one thing is we could have 100-page plan, hypothetically, right? But we could come up with creating a 1-pager on these are our levers, these are our targets, this is what we did, so that our stakeholders would have something that they could refer to, right? That we have those, like the capital improvement plan. I don't even know how many pages it is, Brandon, but I know it's pretty thick. And so if there was just a 1-pager of year 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's something the team definitely can do. And it's something that I've seen districts across our nation or other districts do also. So in growing in our process, that is something that the team can look at in creating.
Thank you for sharing that. In fact, many strategic plans are moving to kind of the 1-page plan. Simple, it's accessible, and no one's reading.
No, it gives the community a chance to be engaged and also celebrate, with pictures, some of the wonderful things that we've accomplished. A picture of the Blue Ribbon School, a picture of some of the school buildings, a picture of some of the furniture that we bought, with interspersed with what we've accomplished and then what we're going to accomplish.
Yeah, I just want to just to bring this to this topic to a close too, less is more. And I think, the one pager, I mean, that's where you want to be, because the idea here is not only that they understand, but that those stakeholders are shepherds for the work. That's what it's about. And so, I wasn't here. I think it's a lovely plan. I think it's very well thought out. I think that this is something that is very constructive inward facing, but outward facing, I think using visuals that are symbolic, that say this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is what it connects to, really helps. It helps not only with our stakeholders, but also with our partners. Because our partners can take a look at it and they know exactly what we need, right? That this is very important to us, right? And that's it. And they know. And it's the same thing with the mission and vision statement. It shouldn't be very lengthy. Everyone should be able to speak that language in the district. Everyone should know this is what we're working on, this is why we're doing it, and this is where we're going, right? And so, yeah, I think the points taken here are they were well stated, and we agree that this is a great document, but this might be something that we use internally, right? The other piece is that we want to make sure that we're showing our progress and doing it in a visual manner and letting people know this is where we're at with these pieces. Exactly. This is excellent. It sounds like everyone is really on the same page with where we want to move with the strategic plan.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, and it's something to celebrate overall that I've observed in both the reflections, but also an area of growth, is that kind of a little bit associated with what had been talked about, but some of the activities or some of the tasks that the departments had focused on were just a matter of establishing what it is that we actually needed as infrastructure. And that's really hard. Like, to start from nothing and to build a team that can give time and energy and some sort of focus to things that some of our most vulnerable students need, like the newcomer school, summer school initiatives, stuff for professional development, curriculum writing for the staff. I think that that's something that we as a board need to champion when we're talking to community members, because it's not just that that we know where we need to go. Absolutely, we know that our reading and math scores, all of thinking of the whole child, we are in need of a lot of improvements to get students where they need to be, but a lot of the infrastructure that maybe other schools have, we don't have, and we didn't have up until this point. So when we think of like the, how do we evaluate that? Well, we never had it before, so it's also a matter of figuring out how best to evaluate it. So I think that's, my call to action, like for people to get involved, and why maybe, thinking about how to get involved in their schools is so important, is that this work requires us to give time and effort, and we're here, but we need more people, So.
Yeah, and to your point, I always say that Destination 2022 laid the foundation for the work that we're doing moving through Destination 2028. Yes. That we couldn't be where we're at if we didn't have this, and that there were a lot of things that needed to happen and needed to be there that other districts they may have been existing. Right. And I think it's important to note that, because the work, the time and effort and work that went into this, and just like the superintendent said, that as we learn and grow as an organization, we develop and we evolve. And I think this is where we're at. We're moving from focusing on activity, laying that foundation, to developing practice, right? And that's the emphasis. We're refining skills and developing practices as we move through Destination 2028. And I really do feel like we're in a really great place. Yes, there's a lot of things that we need to improve on, but I think we've come a long way. A lot of good work has been done, and it continues to be done. So thank you all. I'm going to have Nick close us out. He's going to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing, how we can involve everyone in this room, plus our stakeholders within the schools and across the district and within the community. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Dr. Cesario. So we're going to go over these last couple slides. A few things, like Dr. Cesario said. First, we're going to start with some survey results, some higher level stuff, and then we are going to talk about some of our upcoming stakeholder meetings that we'd like to have. So on the first slide, what you'll see is what we asked our stakeholders was to rank the current initiatives in order of importance to you: student achievement, organizational effectiveness, community engagement, et cetera, institutional access, supportive climate. What you'll see here, so 1 was the most important. So if this is the most important out of all of the initiatives to you, give it a 1. If you see it as the lesser important, going down to 5. I think some, the directions we thought were pretty clear, but clearly there's a lot more, a lot of 1s kind of jump in there. But you'll see, as far as student achievement alone goes, student achievement, more than a third of individuals there saw student achievement as the most important. So that's something that we're keeping in mind as we're going forward. And then going across the rest of the way, organizational effectiveness, community engagement, institutional access, supportive climate, you sort of have almost an even distribution there across the way. But student achievement, kind of what we expected, is what individuals, when they look at the school district, when they look at the work that we are aiming to do, is what they see as the most important. And that's going to play out in the next couple slides as well. On the next slide, what we talked about of our initiatives, where do you believe we showed the most growth in recent years? And there's really 2 areas that are the 2 top ones: community engagement, and slightly above community engagement is student achievement. So people think student achievement is important, is what we're seeing here. And 2, almost a little over a quarter, people think that we have shown growth in that area. They also think we've shown growth in the community engagement. Areas that we see with the lowest is organizational effectiveness and institutional access, with supportive climate about even in terms of percentage point. And so after growth, obviously, or I'm sorry, where we showed the most growth, next what we wanted to do is areas that individuals feel they need the most improvement.
Apologies to interrupt you, Nick. My only question is, and I believe I took the survey, but did we define those areas?
Yeah, those areas were defined on page 1 of the survey. So on page 1, you see it defines each one in English and Spanish, sort of what everything means. And it was defined, so it was defined right when you click on the survey, as well as in the initial email that went out in the survey. Now in the text messages that went out for the survey, obviously character limits. But when you click on the survey, it was right there. And so here, the last multiple choice question was, where do they individuals think we have the most opportunities for growth? So again, it's student achievement. Student achievement is sort of at the forefront of everyone's answers for all of the categories. So we wanted to share that, just so everyone kind of see. What we also asked then were 2 open-ended questions. Some open-ended questions on areas for growth, open-ended questions on areas that we've done well, and they mirror a lot of what we've seen here. They talked about some specific areas in these categories, and we could provide those to the board if you would like. But that's something the team is still reviewing. The survey closed last Monday, so we haven't had all the time in the world to really sit there and look at every single written response, but we're kind of combing through those as we go along. So next steps that we want to discuss are some more of these similar type meetings, and to a smaller scale. We're going to have, if you'll see on the next slide, a couple general sessions. And what we want to plan are 2 virtual general sessions, so anybody can attend, and 2 in-person general sessions. And Mr. Bembry, I believe, is going to assist in helping to moderate some of those, where we can meet with all stakeholders, whether it's parents, community members, staff, students, whoever would like to attend. We found during the pandemic, as I'm sure you guys have found in your lives, virtual sessions are nowadays some of the better attended. It's the convenience factor. We feel most people at this point have that understanding of how to do those virtual meetings. They understand, they have the technological bandwidth to be able to log in. There's a comfort level there, so we're comfortable doing that. And then in person as well. Other thing we want to do is small focus groups, about 6 people. Now you see there, if you do the math, you have about 15 of them. So we're going to kind of divide and conquer from some of our executive leadership team members to be able to meet with these small groups, go over some activities, go over some information with them and some data with them about what's important for them, where do we need to focus moving forward as we continue to build out Destination 2028. So these meetings between now and I believe it's early December, is that correct? Mid-December, between now and mid-December, so about the next 2 months. We want to start releasing these dates sometime next week or the following so that people can get them on their calendars, and so that we ensure people have adequate time, you know, if they can attend, to be able to join us for these meetings. And that is all. That's all we have for this evening. Dr. Sario or Mr. Bembry, I don't know if either one of you want to close us out, or the superintendent.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, thank you all for your participation. We said we would end at 8, and I think we have 1 minute. So we did a good job of working within the time. I want to thank Mr. Bembry for really helping us as a thought partner and facilitating the meeting. And thank you to each and every one of the board members that are here and that are at home who have participated and provided input and feedback. I think that's the way that this work gets done. We look forward to our stakeholder meetings, both those small, more intimate ones, those focus groups, and our large town hall meetings. Again, our goal is to provide as much access as possible. That's why we're doing them at different times of the day. We're doing them in person. We're doing them virtually. We want to hear as many people's voices as possible and gather as much input and feedback so that as we're developing this, that it really embodies what the community and what our stakeholders really want to see, and that it can be a true shared vision. So again, I want to thank you all. Board President, do you want to say any final words?
Important work. Thank you all for coming out. This concludes part 2. Now Deputy Cesario, as they mentioned, is going to go along with the timeline and get to work, and then there'll be a presentation to the Board of Education at a later date around this. So with that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Wozniak, second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.